Good morning, everyone. It is really terrific to see so many of the Morgan family out this morning, our senior administration, faculty, staff, students, alumni, and of course we have what will be several hundred individuals who are joining us via Zoom. I want to welcome you to our first end of semester town hall meeting outside on the mall. One of our 6 core values here at Morgan is innovation, and that's what we're doing today. And I really do appreciate your indulgence as we get the technology here up and running. While we're doing that though, I want to say to everyone within the Morgan family that we are 2 weeks from the end of our spring 22 semester. And this is the first time that we have been reunited in face-to-face, in-person environment since 2020. And I am just so enormously proud of the way we have maneuvered through this past year. And I think we have done this, I know we have done this, because of your resilience. And I want you to really applaud yourselves for all of the incredible resilience that you have shown throughout this year. During the pandemic, I gave a convocation address, and I entitled it Morgan Strong. And I entitled it that way because we were confronting some of the most incredible challenges that this institution has faced or had faced since 1918. You know, that was the great Spanish flu epidemic. And this institution had only been in this location 1 year. And so we had moved from the west side of Baltimore to this location in 1917. And then all of a sudden, 1918 came the next year. It was an unbelievable pandemic. Several 100,000 people in the United States, unfortunately, lost their lives. And President Spencer, John Oakley Spencer, was the president here. And I went back and I read everything that President Spencer did during that incredible period. And what I emerged with was a theme. And the theme was simply, Morgan is a strong and resilient place. And we will continue to thrive. We will continue to grow. And that was the inspiration for that. And so it gives me great pleasure to see all of you here today as we take an opportunity to kind of bring you up to date on some of the things that we have been about this past year. And then just mention how we are looking to welcome the entire Morgan family back in fall of 2022. And so we always, of course, start our town hall gathering with an agenda, and you put that back up, Ms. Ben. And usually I go through these things fairly quickly. And for those of you who are sitting a little bit further away from the screen, we always start with our vision here at Morgan and our core values, our 6 core values. LEADER, the acronym, L-I-I-D-E-R, leadership, innovation, integrity, diversity, excellence, and respect. We are not confused here at Morgan. We know who we are, and we expect the entire university community to live up to these core values every single minute of every hour of every day of every week of every month of every year. And further, we have a very clear vision, and this vision is a shared vision. And it is that Morgan is the preeminent public urban research institution in this nation. We were birthed in a space, proud space called Historically Black College or University. That space would never be vacated. And we are educating students here for the world. And when you get your education here at Morgan, it's not just designed for you to be competitive with the student across town or downstate or across the United States. We understand that you have to be competitive with the students all over the world. And you cannot if you don't understand the world. And so we do everything we can here to give you those experiences, where you're understanding the larger global environment. And so moving on. And so with that in mind, this is unprecedented, I believe, in almost the history of any institution, with the exception of perhaps a couple around the Washington, D.C. area. But within the last 3 months, we have had visits from five cabinet secretaries from the Biden administration, 5. And each one has come without my extending to them a single invitation. They have come because this institution is rising significantly. They are coming to understand our research. They're coming to understand our uniqueness. They're coming to make sure that they are understanding that you cannot have a serious conversation in the United States about long-term competitiveness of the nation if Morgan State University and institutions like it are not at the center of that conversation. And so we welcomed first the US Secretary of Commerce, Secretary Gina Raimondo. She came here February the 11th, and I was very pleased with the students that she met here. And we had Senator Cardin, who was a part of that dialogue right here on the 4th floor of the library. And basically, she brought with her 20 small business owners from around the United States. Many of them, of course, had never even been to campus. But we were very, very pleased when we welcomed her. And then 2 weeks later, we had the Secretary of the Army, Secretary Christine Wormuth. She came and spent, I guess, about 6 hours or so here on campus. I spent some amazing time in the research laboratories, also, talking with our ROTC cadets, and getting a really, really good understanding of why Morgan State University is amongst the top 3 universities in the country in producing generals for the Army. Indeed, we have produced several 4-star, 3-star, 2-star, and 1-star generals. And you don't produce that type of leadership if you don't know what you're doing. And she came to understand what's in the water here that has enabled us to produce all of these fantastic leaders to lead our nation. Then that was followed by a visit from the trade representative, Catherine Tao. Of course, there's a lot of emphasis now on trade all over the world. And this cabinet level position is there to make sure, and we wanted to make sure that she understood that there must be equity in trade, because you can't just have a policy that may be impacting one part of the world, and then you're leaving behind the marginalized populations, so to speak, and those that we should be paying attention to, like the populations that we serve in the majority, to make sure that those trade values and the dollars are flowing back to our neighborhoods and our communities too. And that's the conversation that we had with the US Trade Representative, Catherine Tai. That was followed by the Undersecretary of US Education, James Cobble. The US Secretary was coming, he had a conflict, and then this is the number 2 person in charge of education in the United States. And he came as well and had this incredible conversation with so many individuals in our community, visited our rocketry lab down in the engineering building, Dean Barton, and left. This was nationally covered, and basically said that he was just so impressed with the research going on here at Morgan and how we're involving our undergraduate students in these laboratories and producing these scientists and innovators. We, our students, with the support of our faculty, are planning to launch a fuel injected rocket next year. And the goal is, Dr. May, that this rocket is going to go to the edge of space. And that's what the secretary wanted to see and applaud. And then just a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, we received a visit, also fairly lengthy visit, from the U.S. Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg. And so Secretary Buttigieg was on the campus as well, because there are 45 national transportation centers on college campuses in the United States. Only 2 are on HBCU campuses. And the best one of those 45 is right here at the national treasure, by the way, Morgan State University, make no doubt about that. And so the Secretary Buttigieg, you can see here, came standing room only in the CBIS building, town hall meeting, toured all the innovation taking place there in our National Transportation Center, and left once again just incredibly clear about the role of this institution. And so the takeaway here is that you're not going to have this kind of national representation in the volume that we had it to come to a university in succession like that, unless they know that you are being educated here to eventually take those positions that they have and to grow those departments differently. And that's the message that we gave to all of them. Growing the future, leading the world. Transformation Morgan 2030. Let me go through this real quickly. We have on our website our board-approved shared vision for Morgan. Where do we see this institution in 2030? Yes, 2030. That's only 8 years from now. But we had to also put a similar plan in place in 2011. And it was, where do we see this institution in 2021? And so all of what you see here on the campus was memorialized in that first plan. And there were a lot of hands, many of these individuals sitting here, that worked hand in hand to make sure that Morgan was never going to stand still. Because when you stand still, you have lost 100 steps. So you got to get up every single day moving. Because if you're not, somebody's moving on you. And you're going to be overtaken if, for example, you find yourself in a period where you're just celebrating that which you achieved yesterday, and you're not planning for tomorrow. So we'll never, ever, ever be about that here at Morgan. And so as a result, we involve so many individuals in the production of our updated strategic plan. It was chaired by Dr. Dawn Terry Veal, who is our Vice President for State and Federal Relations and Chief of Staff. So we have these 6 goals. And within those goals, each one we outline very clearly where we want to take this institution continually in order for 2030, Morgan to occupy one of those very, very top positions in the United States as that #1 premier public comprehensive research university. And so I urge you to go on the web and make your way through each of these goals and see where we're going as an institution. We are going through each one of those, and we are identifying all of the activities that we will be about, and we will share those with the university community within the next month or so. It's very easy to come up with what I call a shared vision for a place. And many of you have heard me talk about visioning and dreaming, and you're not going to hear anything differently today. I always paraphrase my favorite poet, Dr. Banks, Langston Hughes. And he said this about individuals who dream and who have visions. He said, yeah, you can have a vision. He said, that's first in the mind, is to create a vision. And he said, well, then you got to use your brain to figure out, well, how in the world do we achieve that vision? And then you have to understand that in order to do it, you have to take your hands and extend them to other hands so that the other hands see themselves in that vision and in that dream. And then at the end, when any dream or vision is ever realized, it never, ever, ever belongs to just the dreamer. It never belongs to one person. It belongs to all of those hands that make it happen. Because there's a lot of hands that have gone into making Morgan today what Morgan is today. And so that's what we did. We crafted our shared vision, and then we realized that, okay, so the first thing we have to do is to convince a lot of people that we need a lot of money. Because I know that tuition and fees, they're always relative in terms of cost. But we cannot build Morgan on tuition and fees because you could not afford it, right? And so for an in-state student, tuition and fees here roughly is about $25,000 a year. If we were trying to build what we are talking about here on just that, you would be paying $125,000 a year. So that's a non-starter. And so then we have to convince the state, that's our largest by far contributor to our ascendancy. We have to convince the state that you got to give us more money. And so when I arrived, the state was giving us about, or investing about, Mr. Evans, about $70 million a year in state appropriation. So let's move to where we are now. So 70 million in 2011. That's 10 years ago. And so last year, FY22, so FY22 is the fiscal year that ends June 30th of 2022. So it started July 1 of 2021, will end June 30th of 2022. We received from the state $117 million in this year, okay? So you start at 70, and that's about a $50 million increase per year. However, what is included in the, this is, I'm comparing apples to apples here first. So what's included in our appropriation starting July 1 of 2022 through June 30th of 2023 is $136 million. That's just the, without counting what I'm going to count in a minute. So that's 70 million to 136 million. That's almost a 100% increase in state appropriations, right? And then in 2006, we had a group of Morgan alumni and students. That group was headed by David Burton, who's president of the Coalition for Excellence and Equity in Maryland Higher Education. They brought a court case, and they said to the state, you still are not funding Morgan and the other 3 HBCUs in the state in the way they should be funded. And that case actually ran for 13 years. And it was finally settled legislatively last year. And so this year, we will be getting $15.1 million from that settlement. And that settlement is going to go on for 9 more years. And so when you add that 15 million, starting July 1 of this year, we will be getting $151 million a year from the state of Maryland to advance our mission here in Morgan. Other hands must help visions to be realized. capital appropriation. This is just for this year. This is for all these buildings that you see going up. Those buildings cost a lot of money, and we do not use student tuition here at Morgan. Your tuition did not pay for Tyler Hall. Your tuition did not pay for the new business school. Your tuition did not pay for the new Jenkins Hall. Your tuition is not going to pay for Health and Human Services. Your tuition is not going to pay for the new science building. Those buildings are being funded 100% by the state of Maryland. We have no debt service. And so this was an $88 million building. And not one dime of your tuition is being used to pay for it. And so what we have in the queue right now are 3 or 4 capital projects in order to keep these projects going. First of all, the construction that you see going on the corner of Argonne and Hillen Road. You see all the construction there, right? That's a $171 million building that will be the Health and Human Services building. It will house the School of Social Work, the School of Community Health and Policy, the nursing program, medical technologists, the counseling center, all of these other operations, 171 million. That building is scheduled to open in the summer of 2024. So 2 years from now, we will have a building on that corner that's going to mirror the business school and Jenkins Hall. And that's going to be an incredible gateway to Morgan State University. And so the way we have to get the funding is the state would give us X amount of dollars this year based on our ability to spend that money, and then X amount next year and X amount the third year. We also have to raise or tear down the Washington Service Center, which is right over here where the police department is right now, and clear all of that, what I call mess in that corner, the physical plant, all of that, in order to make way for a $240 million new science building. And so you'll see work over there proceeding soon. So now let me kind of go behind these numbers a little bit here, but we went from $48.9 million from the state for capital projects to keep these buildings moving last year to $108 million that we are getting in the coming year. That's a total increase of $59 million or 121% increase. And these buildings then are moving forward because of this. And so I want to stop right here and applaud Mr. Sidney Evans and our team in finance and administration, Ms. Kim McCalla and our team in design, construction, and physical facilities, all of our deans and faculty and provosts, because it really takes a lot to come up with the opportunities for investment that are so compelling to the state to move these numbers. And so let's go to the next slide. So when you look at like that money that's coming in the operating budget, right? That's 70 million to 150 million. And so these are what actually, this is what some of that is going to support. And so we have several new centers coming online. And I'm just going to mention a couple of them. So we convinced the state to fund a very unique research center here, and it's called the Center for Equitable Artificial Intelligence Machine Learning. Equitable. And so young students, if you don't know about artificial intelligence, machine learning, please take out your cell phones, take a note of that, and understand it very well, because that is the work of the future and the future of work. And we have to understand how to align all these things, and you need to understand it all too well. We have people in these laboratories from MIT to Georgia Tech to Cal Poly, and they are developing these algorithms. You know what? So what is an algorithm? So I'll be headed to the airport later on this afternoon, right? So each time I go through the checkpoint, I'm just waiting for, oh, you've been identified, step out of line, right? So someone has written an algorithm there, and they have programmed that to look for certain things. And you know, I have to go here, because sometimes I'm like, there's a line of 25 people, and I am the only Black man in the line. And I get up, and I know it's going to go off, and I go, there it is, right? And so what typically could have happened there is that whomever programmed that, they programmed it in a biased way. So what Morgan is saying is, wait a minute, we ain't taking that into the future, so to speak. Yep. And by the way, I misused grammar appropriately. But we're not going to own that. And so what we want to do is to create different types of algorithms that would tease out implicit bias up front. And that's what our young students here, we want you to get excited about that. We want you to get out there and be on the cutting edge of this technology. And when you are in those other laboratories, when you're in conversations with your colleagues at whomever, Google and Facebook and all of these places, we want you to be there understanding what time of day it is and bringing a different kind of perspective to that conversation that will ensure that those companies don't replicate bias in artificial intelligence. And this is the kind of thinking that is so compelling that when we bring it to the table in Annapolis, we get traction. And I'm not going to go through all of that. So go on to the next slide, please. And we'll race through these real quickly. And so once again, for our capital projects, I talked about health and human services. We get $30 million in deferred maintenance. Deferred maintenance is like what's right here in Hurt Gym. We had to take it offline because, you know, it's just not appropriate for what we embrace here at Morgan. And so it'll be offline for a year. When it reopens or so, you're going to go in, you're going to be very, very impressed. You know, we have almost completely gutted that entire building, or will, and then going to rebuild it on the inside. Right, that's deferred maintenance. We're doing the same thing with Carter Grant Wilson and some of the other buildings here on campus as well. The new science center I've spoken about, and then we have some money coming for a research center that we run down in St. Leonard, Maryland, if you will. On to the next slide. And so for that $15 million from the HBCU legislative settlement, just put up that slide. I'm not going to go through. All these are available to you. The legislation said that we could only use this money for these 6 things. And so we could use some of it for scholarships and financial aid, which we will, for faculty recruitment, for starting new academic degree programs, and then enhancing some academic degree programs that we currently have. We can use it to market the institution, to make sure that individuals understand who we are here at Morgan, et cetera, and you will hear more about that. On to the next slide. And so, once again, we're very transparent with money. I insist that if you want to examine at any point how Morgan State University is allocating its resources, it is not a secret. All you need to do is ask. Because guess what? We are a public university. We understand that the investments being made in us, those dollars, $150 million, guess what? Those are taxpayer dollars coming from the taxpayers of the state of Maryland, and every one of them has a right to demand how we are investing that money. And so we open our books, we're very transparent. This is how the $15.1 million will be allocated. And then if we get additional dollars going forward in the future years, we'll bring that back to you as well and let you know how we're allocating all of that. And so for the students, because I've heard questions about, well, you know, I just read in the paper where X university forgave, the loans of the students that were graduating or whatever, and you look at the amount and it may have been $800,000. But I want to just kind of let all of our students know the amount of money and the number of students that have been the recipients of the money that we have invested in them since May of 2020. And so in the fall of 2021 through spring of 2022, we had $3 million in student emergency funds, primarily in the Morgan State University Foundation, where students would say, I don't have money to go home. I need a laptop. I need whatever the student is needing in order to ensure that that student will remain in school and we can help that student to progress to the degree. So $3 million went to 1,577 students. Then we got federal dollars in what we call the CARES Act. And we put in place a system here at Morgan where we try to ensure that every single student, except the students from a very, very high family income, could actually receive some support. And so there was $26.3 million of federal support that we received from Washington that went directly to students, and 8,100 students have received financial support. That deserves a round of applause. Yeah, 8,100 students. But then once again, we have these other kind of pockets of opportunity to invest where donors have said to us, I want to help students at Morgan, but they have to be in a certain category. And when a donor says that to you, I don't care if the donor gives you $150 million, right? And if that donor says, but you can only assist students in these 4 majors, you can only do that, not all students. And so we've had several. So we had an anonymous donor who literally called up Miss Howard, Donna Howard, Vice President for Institutional Advancement, and myself, and just said, we just really, really like so much of what's going on at Morgan. We're going to give you $250,000, and we want you to identify students in these 4 or 5 areas, and basically distribute all this money to them over 2 years. And so we were able to identify 59 students, and basically they are now the recipients of the $250,000. Then we got $150,000 from BGE, because I was just at a reception with the president and other executives last night at BGE with some of our students who are recipients of these monies. And BGE said that Morgan is the number 2 university in the state of Maryland in terms of graduates who are employees at BGE. And about 80% of them are engineers. And so they are directing their money in the way in which they want to make sure that the students are benefiting. So 15 students have been identified roughly that are going to get about $10,000 or so each from BGE. And then Target, the corporation, also said that it wanted to provide scholarship dollars. And so 74 students have benefited from a $350 million, I wish it was 350 million, $349,000 contribution from Target. On to the next slide. Here are, 184,000 from additional funding coming from various sources. We've sent that out the door to over 1,500 students. Then another $393,000 in Ms. Wilkerson, the SEOG program, 185 students. And so on to the next slide. And so through this CARES Act, so go back to now 2020, because remember 2020 was, the spring of 2020, that was a really, really tough period, because, COVID hit us so quickly, and we had to close the campus. We had to send all the students home. And then we had to figure out a way to give you refunds, and it was just one of the most challenging periods in the history of this institution. And so we were headed toward $34 million deficit. That means that giving you all those refunds, and almost at the end of the fiscal year, the bank was not just dry, it was negative by $34 million. And we have not received some kind of assistance. I hate to even finish that sentence. However, we did get money from what was called the CARES Act. And the way that money came, we had no option but to give students a direct check with no restrictions. And that's how many of you got a direct check. Now, we had hoped that you would take that check and pay off some of those balances, right? But that's a discussion for another day. But the bottom line is that over $9 million went straight to students as a result of that federal funding. On to the next slide. And then with the American Rescue Plan that President Biden passed, another $11 million or so has gone directly to students as well. And so students have been recipients of quite a bit of federal and institutional dollars over the last 2 years. On to the next slide. Campus community, if you will. And so here's some things for our faculty that are listening online and that are here. With the additional support that we are getting now from the state, we have to also correct some historic kind of opportunities that we have not had an opportunity to correct. One of them was that Morgan had a long, not so glorious history of employing staff in what the university had called contractual positions. And so students, there is something called morality and doing the right thing. And so for decades, this institution had been hiring staff, working those staff 40 hours a week without having full benefits. And so when you walk around the campus and you saw how beautiful it is, and you go into the buildings and you see how clean they are, the chances were that that was done with staff who were not getting full benefits. When you have snow days that you wish sometimes for so you can stay home and sleep, we have staff that are here on campus at 2 a.m. without benefits. And we decided that's not us. With the additional resources that we have to correct that. So we basically eliminated that practice here at Morgan and made all of those individuals whole. And they now all have benefits. And as a university community, and I'm saying this particularly to our students, right? When you pass by one of the members of our Morgan family, who has done a great job of cutting this lawn, I want you to sometimes just stop and thank them. Because what they're doing here is just as important as what is taking place in your classroom. They, if you will, this is their Picasso. This is their canvas. And if they don't approach it that way, that this is my Picasso, this is my canvas. And if those families that are coming to visit this place, if they get out and they see garbage everywhere, they see weeds everywhere, they're going to conclude that, well, why should I encourage my son or daughter to go to a place when it doesn't seem as if people there care about it? And so say thank you to those individuals who are on the front lines and sending the first message that visitors and others receive about the institution. Our faculty, many of them, have been in a position where, I'll say this quickly. So the way we hire tenure and tenure track faculty at the institution, Provost U, is we bring them in and they like an assistant professor. They're like in a probationary period, right? And typically you have 5 to 6 years then to do the research, to be an effective instructor in the classroom, to do the service. And then you bring all of that before a committee, and a committee then decides, okay, so do we want to tenure this person? So, you typically could get 50 to 60% of those individuals who are tenured. And when they are tenured, that's a lifelong appointment. And that is really one of the few opportunities for faculty at a university to get a significant pay increase. It's when they are promoted from assistant to associate and then associate to full. And we have not really been providing a faculty with an adequate, what we call bump during that period to enable them to be competitive with their colleagues across the country. And so Provost, you and I are working now with the faculty, and we are going to come up with a larger increase when faculty members are promoted from assistant to associate professor and then associate professor to full professor. Just to give you an idea of what that is right now, it's around $2,000. That's what they get now, that's just not the right number. And so it's going to be a number, far north of $2,000, because that's the only opportunity, remember, they can get for this kind of significant increase. And so on to the next slide, and then the same is going to happen for staff, is that, we're going to put in place what we call a staff development ladder, so you can go from, an accountant 1 to an accountant 2 to a lead accountant, if you will. And there'll be a very rigorous process there. There'll be some kind of additional compensation that will come when you meet those particular promotion standards. And HR and Mr. Evans and others are working together to try and put that in place. Enhancing campus security. And I think I have about 5 to 7 more minutes, and then we'll move on. So we are always looking at how we enhance security here at Morgan. And sometimes it's a challenge because we are an open campus in an urban community. And so as such, how do we very intentionally protect the campus? One thing that we have really been about is growing our sworn police officers. And so we actually have 44 positions for sworn police officers. We have 37 of those positions that are filled right now. And we are currently recruiting an additional 17 officers, and that will bring us to 54 sworn officers on the campus. We also are hiring an emergency manager to oversee, this is an acronym COOP, this is the Continuity of Operations Plan. And what that means is that if we get a natural disaster, if we get some of these very destructive things that come our way, we have a plan in place as to how you move quickly. And we have to have someone on campus who's going to oversee that, because you never know, especially given the threats that we received lately. We didn't know if they were real or not, but we had to pretend as if they were. And that person is going to come on board for the very first time to help us now maneuver through this in a very methodical and smooth way. And then our police department here is always held to the highest standards of campus policing. And we want to take it to now the highest level. And in doing that, our police department now is going to undergo a national accreditation process. And the goal is to fully accredit the police department here at Morgan in the national best standards for campus policing, and they will be certified. And that's the next standard, and we're going to hold our police officers to that, and are looking forward to that. And then finally, in this area, you may have heard that we are piloting devices now in residential halls to ensure that nothing that is not supposed to be in a residential hall will be there. I just have to say, Morgan is not accepting that, if you will. This is a campus community. And the way universities and the way students deal with conflict is through words. College students, you're about words, you're about talking, that's the way you resolve conflict. And you're here in order to get those tools to enable you to use your head to do more than simply keep your ears apart. And so, as such, we have installed in O'Connell Hall this safety detection device upon entry, and sending an unambiguous and clear message that this is a learning community. And if you engage in a dispute here, we're going to help you sit around the table and have those skills in your toolbox, because that's how you grow and that's how you develop. It's about words, books. Just Google Samuel L. Green, our founder. He was sentenced to 10 years in a penitentiary here in Baltimore because he was a slave in Dorchester County, and realized that that's not the future. I need to learn how to read. And he learned how to read, and he got hold of a book called Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe. And the slave catchers caught him with that book and sentenced him to 10 years in a Baltimore City penitentiary, of which he served 5, and was released in 1862 and said, "You thought that you put that fire out in me? No, you did not. Guess what? I'm going to lead the effort to found a college called the Centenary Biblical Institute, Morgan State University." And so we are founded on books, folks, and we can't ever forget that. And so this is being piloted right now in one of our residential halls. But Dr. Banks, the plan is that opening in the fall, you're going to see this in every residential facility on campus. And I hope you understand why we're moving in this direction, and be more than happy to hear from you as we move on. Finally, COVID protocols for fall. I really want to applaud the university community, for adhering to all of the protocols that we had to put in place over the last 2 years. The level of resistance has just been minimal. And so through HR, I think for our employees, it is in the mid to high 90s in terms of fully vaccinated. For our students, it's also our residential students, also in the high 90s, Dr. Banks. And that's why we have had so few cases during the course of the pandemic. And so we're going to continue our COVID protocols for fall. And what are those COVID protocols? It's the same as we have in place right now. We will continue to require masking indoors only within classrooms and on campus transportation, the student health center, and the testing center. And so that's going to continue, Dr. Hawkins, unless conditions change. And if conditions change, we'll have to pivot. But you should leave the campus knowing that what you are seeing now minimally will not change come fall unless circumstances dictate. Now, that means also that vaccinations will be required. So you will have to show proof that you have been vaccinated before you return to campus in the fall, and for all incoming students and for newly hired employees. And we are not requiring you to get the booster, but I often say that I'm the first among equals, and I certainly am going to get my booster next week and my second booster. And I urge you, because I think now all of you qualify, to really, really pay attention to the virus, how it is mutating, and I highly encourage you to get your booster shot as well. So we're not requiring it, but I'm highly encouraging you. So now, good news. Goldman Sachs Market Madness. For the last 2 years, we've had a team of students here at Morgan to come in the top, one of the top 3 spaces in the Goldman Sachs Market Madness. They invite about 20 HBCUs each year to put together several teams, and they give them a really corporate problem to solve. And this year the problem was Pepsi-Cola and the market share that Pepsi-Cola was losing, and these students had to get in there and figure out how to help Pepsi-Cola become a strong company again. And so our students came in number 3 amongst that group of 20-something HBCUs, and the university is getting from Goldman Sachs unrestricted $250,000. Each of those students will be getting $10,000 from Goldman Sachs. Last year, our students came in, I believe, number 2, and this university received $500,000 from Goldman Sachs. And so here's what I want to say to those students who participated last year in the Goldman Sachs Market Madness, where the university received $500,000, and those students this year at $250,000. That's $750,000. And so, Dr. Turner, I know you're online. I know Mr. Wells, the dean, and Ms. Howard. So those students, I think there's about 8 of them, will not graduate from Morgan with 1 Lincoln penny of debt. This institution will use a portion of that $750,000 to fully fund every one of these students, because otherwise we wouldn't have it if, for example, they did not use what Morgan had prepared them for, their brains, to get in there and compete at the highest level and to come away with the money. And then we're going to provide some support to the faculty that work with them to help them do this, et cetera. And so please follow up with me, and we'll put in place the appropriate system to make that happen. Enhancing student success and well-being, just moving right along here. We, of course, have been paying attention to our graduation rates. When we accept you, we expect you to graduate. And so we're moving in the direction that we want to go here. I'm not going to go through all of this. Great retention rates. So many of you now, well into the 75 or so out of every 100 students that start here as freshmen come back. And that means that you are having a great Morgan experience. We want to keep that going. And we can just move on here, through these slides, if you will. I want to point out our ladies softball team, our women's softball team here. I've been just so impressed with our student athletes in softball. And so this year they set a school record for the number of wins in school history. We have never ever won 29 games before. And this year they won 29 games. And for the second time in 3 years, they are the conference champions, regular season champions. And they're headed to the MEAC tournament next week in Norfolk. And so we wish them well. Last weekend, I was in Philadelphia. I was there on business and did not get a chance to go over to the Penn Relays. But as the news was coming in about our men track and field team, I really wanted to race out of that dingy hotel and get over to Franklin Field, but I could not do it. But our men's 4x100 meter team came in first place in the college division at the Penn Relays. First place, came away with the gold. And then the 4x200 team said, but what about us? And so they went out and basically showed the men 4x100 that, yeah, you can set the standard, but we are going to match you. And so they too came in #1 in the college division as well. And to put this in perspective, this is the first win that Morgan State has had in the Penn Relays since 1984. And so we're very, 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 very pleased. And then we want to welcome our new Director of Athletics and Vice President to Morgan, Ms. Gina Freeman Patton. I made the announcement on Tuesday. We're very excited to welcome Gina to our national treasure. She comes to us from California State University, Dominguez Hills, where she has been Director of Athletics and Associate Vice President. She also was the Deputy Director of Athletics at Georgia State University, University of New Orleans, is really one of the top leaders, particularly female leaders of color within the NCAA nationwide, are very respected. And so we are delighted to welcome Ms. Freeman Patton to Morgan State University. And I want to thank Dr. Kevin Banks for chairing the search committee, working with the search firm to land us Gina Freeman Patton. New student housing, yay. So Mr. Evans, when was the last time we built new student housing on campus? On campus, 1991. Who can do the math there? I think that's 31 years, but pretty close to it, right? And so I come by our new Thurgood Marshall Hall there, park my car on weekends and just kind of walk around, and I bother Miss McCalla here too much. I call her almost every weekend. Say, Kim, are you sure? We're on track to open. And sometimes she'll just say to me, Dr. Wilson, just hang up the phone and keep doing what you're doing, right? So we are very excited that we are about to open 670 beds right over here is on track to open around July, early August of this year. And this is the new dining facility as well. Now, the dining facility may be a little late opening, but it should be. Hello, how are you? Yay, welcome to Morgan. Absolutely, all of you should come over and find out a little bit more about the university that you're going to experience in a few years, right? And so we're very excited. And we have gotten the board to give us the preliminary green light to move forward and start planning now for a twin tower that's going to be right coming off of that building. And if everything goes as planned, we'll break ground on this twin tower within the coming months. And this is 604 new beds. And the expectation is that it will be ready for students to move in by fall of 2024. And so we are moving forward. Then starting in fall of 2023, and correct me, Dr. Banks, Mr. Evans, or Ms. McCallum, of 2023, the renovations. In 2023, we're going to take offline 3 residential halls, or 2 to 3 residential halls. This one here, which is Cummings and Baldwin. And so we're going to take those off for 1 year. We're going to go in and we're going to completely gut the inside and going to rebuild the inside. We're not going to do anything with the historic facades here. And then we'll reopen them in the fall of 2024. And then we'll take another one offline, which will be Harper Tubman. We go in and do the same thing for Harper Tubman, and then bring that one back online. By the way, our plan is to raise or tear down O'Connell Hall, and that would be the site of a third new residential hall between now and 2027. And then we'll do some slight renovations to Rawlins and to Blount along the way as well. The bottom line is that by 2027, our plan is to have a minimum of 2 new residential halls on campus and to have made our way through the renovation process for our legacy ones. And Northwood Commons, if you've been over there lately, you see that that place is just amazing. It's come a long way. And so this is what it looks like, and it's close to opening. The supermarket will be opening soon. The First Bank, Fulton Bank, will be opening next week. McDonald's has already opened. We have 2 Morgan alums who actually will have businesses in this location. Everyone wants to know whether Sonny's is coming back, and the answer is yes, Sonny's is coming back, if you will. But we will have Chipotle and Wingstop and Georgia Peach. So IHOP. And so there will be a number of opportunities for you to go across the street and to satisfy your appetite. And so Barnes & Noble bookstore, that is scheduled to open in November of this year. And we're going to move our bookstore from the Student Center across the way. Our public safety building is scheduled to open late this summer, and that's would make way for us to raise the Washington Service Center. And then Lake Clifton High School property, our Board of Regents officially approved the conveyance from the City of Baltimore, and the City of Baltimore Board of Estimates approved that about 3 weeks ago. That's 59 acres of land, about a mile down from us. And that is truly transformational for Morgan. We are putting together a master plan for that property. You know, we expect to build a multi-purpose events center there that could seat about 10,000 people. In the future would be the site of our commencements and convocations and athletic events and all of that. Some academic degree programs as well. We're looking to have it as a mixed use development to build some more graduate student housing and some more businesses. And then long term, as I've said to the board, this 59 acres is about Morgan State University in the year 3022. Right, 100 years from now, you got to start planning. Right, you remember what I said about planning? Right, because if you don't plan, people can conclude that you don't know where you want to be, and we want to make sure that whomever is on this campus in 3022 can talk about it the way I was talking about Reverend Samuel Green. That's the dots that you have to connect. And so we plan to build that out, and we are very excited. And so this is the final slide, isn't it? Spring 2022 commencement. So I need all of us to just kind of send up whatever we want to send up to whomever we need to send it up to, and hope that, this would be ideal weather. With no sunshine, just cloudy skies, right? Where you don't need an umbrella and it's not 100 degrees. And so are we gonna own that weather? Yay, let's own that. Let's see it. And so our graduate ceremony is going to be Thursday, May 19th at 10 a.m. That's going to also be in the stadium, in Hughes Stadium. And then our undergraduate ceremony will be Saturday morning, 10 a.m. And tickets are not required. And so you can have your family members to come from near and far and see all of your great accomplishments on the part of our graduates. And our commencement speaker is renowned filmmaker, playwright, author, David Talbert. David Talbert, his last movie was Jingle Jangle, that of course ran on Netflix. Netflix advanced him $90 million to produce that. That's the largest budget that has been given to a Black director, I believe, in Hollywood history. And he's a 1989 graduate of Morgan. And we are very, very delighted to welcome back one of our successful alums, Mr. David Talbert. There'll be more that we will say about this commencement, perhaps in the next couple of weeks. And I think you'll be equally excited with what you'll hear from us in 2 weeks from now. So thank you very much, all of you, for coming out and witnessing what we tried to do in this innovative space and to bring us together outdoors. And at this time, if you have any questions, you can come up to one of these microphones here. You really do need to use the microphone because that's how the individuals who are on the Zoom call can hear you. So any questions, any feedback, and we are in a position to address them. If you come to the mic, introduce yourself. If you're a student, your name, your major, perhaps your hometown. And if I can't address your question, we have our deans and vice presidents and provosts and others are here who can do that. So the first question. Yes.
Hello, my name is Tyler Mitchell. I'm a freshman political science major. And so I'm from Baltimore, just to say. My main question is, what is Morgan going to be doing to minimize on filler emails next semester? Because I feel like a lot of opportunities are getting missed out on because a few of the emails don't really need to be emails, or at least they could at least have an opt-out option.
So we would be open to hearing more from you about this. Dr. Oladapupu is not with us, but Mr. Jones, do you want to address this? And while Mr. Jones is coming forward, let me say this to our students as well. I'm always interested in knowing from students, how best can we as a university communicate with you? Now, for official university business, we have to communicate with you with your official Morgan email, right? But it really pains me when I take so much time to write these incredible emails. And I say to the students, well, didn't you read my email? And the response I get back was, but Dr. Wilson, it was too long. And I said, but it was only 2 paragraphs, right? So, but anyway, I want to hear from students as to how best we can communicate with them and how do we ensure that we're not overloading them in terms of their email.
This generation tends to speak in pictures.
Okay.
And videos.
And so the next town hall is going to be all pictorial.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. I'm Larry Jones with the Office of Public Relations and Strategic Communications here at Morgan. And in response to your question, at least I can speak to one of the emails that you get because it comes out of my department, the MSU announcements. We're currently working on revamping those particular emails where we're going to have a new layout and design, and we're going to limit the amount of information that's in it. And there will be an opt-out feature for at least that particular email. And that's something that should be coming maybe over the summer. So when you return in the fall, it's going to have a new look and feel. We try to direct folks to information that is currently on the website and use that email to drive the traffic. But that's the only particular one where we're going to change up and have an opt-out feature for that. And also to the point that you made about the students being more responsive to pictures. We are kind of overthinking our strategy in terms of always putting things in writing so that you have to read things. And we're going to change up a little bit more where we rely more on video communications from the president, communications from some of our administrators where important information you need to receive, we'll put it in a video format.
Okay, and Ms. Campbell?
Hi. So I'm actually in agreement with you. What happens is students miss important offers from like financial aid, enrollment management, and student success. One of the things that I think will help us is we don't have an intranet for the students, like a layover when they log into the system. And it also takes you about 6 clicks just to get to your main landing page, and there's not any salient information there. So if we were to invest in a layover system that would allow people to click to what they need to get to, and also staff and faculty need one as well. And I've been talking to our esteemed Ms. Shivani about that. So we would like to partner on that to make sure that we get something for everyone that is a little bit more informative, so that when they get into the system, some of those notifications and things can be right there.
Okay, and so we'll report back to you at the fall town hall meeting, as to what we have done to try and unclutter your email box, because we don't want you seriously to miss very important emails coming from financial aid, from the Department of Enrollment Management and Student Success about your registration. And we also don't want you to miss opportunities, like I was sharing with you in terms of the Goldman Sachs Market Madness, right? So they send us a blast and they say, okay, well, put this in front of your students. And that's how those students then on their own came together on their own, and they formed those teams. And so we get so many emails like that of opportunity. And then it's our responsibility to put them in front of the entire student population, because we don't want a situation where some of the other campuses have put them in front of students, and then all of a sudden you go on social media and you see X university won first place, X university won first place. You go, where's Morgan? Well, we didn't put it in front of the students. And that's the only reason why we didn't come out also as one of those top winners. And at the same time, we don't want to overload you with email that's not relevant. So we will look into that. Okay.
A peculiar recommendation I would also make is having an advertisement or something kind of like drawing the eye at the beginning of an email to kind of like motivate a reader to continue to read. I noticed that makes a really big difference.
So what's your name again?
Tyler Mitchell.
Okay, so Mr. Mitchell, I'm going to officially anoint you as an advisor to our Chief Technology Division and the group that we're going to put together to rethink this, because I love your ideas. They're very creative and very imaginative, and we want you in the conversation.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're on your way to being president in Morgan, and so we don't want to get in the way of that.
Thank you for the opportunity. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thank you,
Stay
Mr.
safe.
Mitchell. Thank you. All right. Next.
Good afternoon. Mr. Wilson, it's very nice to see you again. I hope that you remember me from the last town hall meeting. Yeah,
Yes,
that's
yes,
nice.
I do. And you put a great challenge in front of us in terms of our not being as fully prepared for our DACA students as we needed to be.
Right.
And so we thank you for bringing that to our attention, and we went forward and we made some immediate changes.
Thank you for listening to me. Let me present myself again. My name is Morelis Urbano. I am a freshman multimedia journalism major from PG County. I am now the president and founder of Morgan State's first organization for undocumented students, first one in the state of Maryland, second one nationwide, and now giving me the privilege of becoming the first fully undocumented person to ever found one at an HBCU in history. We recently had our second March for Immigration Reform in DC, which you were invited. Hopefully you can join us next time. I have to say thank you for the support that I had from the university, especially from Dr. Turner. When it comes to me opening the conversation of immigration being a Black issue on campus. But as you can see, my presence at Morgan State University is not only to achieve a higher education, but to create an impact. So moving forward, the opportunities that you guys are already planning on taking, which hopefully I'm not wrong. When it comes to financial aid, I also wanted to create awareness on the fact that as now president of UndocuBear, which is the name of my organization, and now mentor of an undocumented high school student that just committed to Morgan State University, by the way, I would like to see if the school could take more of an approach when creating awareness on this issue on a nationwide level, even a statewide, you know what I'm saying? Because it's important for HBCUs to actively take action on this matter, as no other HBCU is doing it right now. And as Morgan State University, they illustrate Morgan State University. It's not only our duty, but our purpose. So how are we actively showing undocumented students that Morgan is a sanctuary space and that Morgan is willing to support them in every type of way when it comes to health, insurance, incomes, opportunities, trainings, right? Besides a question, this is more of a proposition as the president of my organization. I have opened the conversation and I am now creating the path. Now we need the support of the school and making the university feel like a safe space for other students, transfer students, high school students, undocumented students all around the nation that can understand that as an HBCU, we are the ones that are making it happen, right? So I would like to hear from you, President Wilson, in what ways will we be receiving your support in the next school year?
First of all, you already have my support. And if that's not felt the way that it needs to be felt, I will double it and triple it. Second, I want to congratulate you, obviously, on your leadership ascendancy here at Morgan. We always say to our students that, Dr. Banks, we have over 150 or so student organizations here on campus. But we say to students, if that organization is not speaking to you in the way that you desire to be spoken to, Morgan State University invites students to form their own organization, to go through the process and basically make it number 151, which is what you have done. And so I really do applaud that. A second, Dr. Turner is online, and we're not prepared yet to publicly announce this, but we are in discussion now with a major donor who has put in front of us an opportunity to provide some financial assistance to undocumented students. And we are very encouraged that we will see this across the finish line. And that come fall, I was turning to Dr. Turner, but I'm not sure if Ms. Campbell is aware of this yet. It's still making its way through. But our expectation is that by fall of 2023, a minimum of 8 DACA students will enroll at the university being supported by this particular opportunity. And so there will be more of a community here on campus as well. Personally, I serve on a number of national boards where this issue is front and center, and I certainly opine on it within the context of a space where those other individuals understand how important it is to Morgan and how important it is to HBCUs, and I will continue to do that. And so let me know when your gathering is. I won't say demonstration, I would say gathering, and I will be more than happy, if my schedule permits, to come and show the kind of support as I showed when we had marches to come to the campus around Black Lives Matter.
Oh, thank you. Well, we already had our march last Sunday. I invited you. Maybe you missed the email a little bit, but yeah. Maybe you can join us next semester. But we did have a good turnout. It was not as big as last one. We took 200 students to DC. This time it was, the weather was not allowing it. It was also a weekend. But we did what we had to do. We joined thousands of people in DC and reminded President Joe Biden that immigration is also a Black issue.
Well, keep it up and let me know in advance, and I'll do everything that I can to participate. Okay, others.
Hello, everyone.
Okay,
how is
I'm
everyone?
sorry.
Okay.
Ms. Berrien.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I'm the Assistant Vice President for Diversity and EEO. My name is Tara Berrien, and we did have the campus climate survey that we kicked out. Yes. So we will be following up on those great examples that were given to us, but I would love for us to be able to connect so that we can get to that undocumented issue, right? Okay, thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Lyman Patterson. I was just a computer science major, but I just switched my major for information systems and a minor in computer science. I have a couple of questions, but I'm only going to stick to two for right now. From a couple of people who are in the nursing society and in the STEM program. One is most programs have an organizational society like this, like MSU Pre-Dental Society. So why do nursing students not have the same, and what is being done to ensure the support of nursing students?
Okay, so are you asking why is it that nursing students don't have a student organization?
No, I'm saying, and just not even just the organization, but the support of the school. I know a lot of nursing students myself who say they don't really have support from the school from a nursing standpoint. Sometimes the professors aren't as supportive as well, which leads to my next question. How are these professors being held accountable? Because we do course evaluations that are required. However, sometimes they aren't being held accountable even if we give the course evaluation.
Okay, I'm going to ask Provost Yu to just make some brief remarks, but I understand there's a process with regard to the feedback from students regarding classes. And that process is that if you really have some feedback that you want to give regarding a class that you've taken, you provide that initially to the instructor. And then if nothing happens, then you go to the department chair and then to the dean, and then he eventually makes his way up to the provost. And so Provost, you just kind of general in terms of ways in which we are supporting our nursing students.
I'm Hongtao Yu, I'm the provost. I'd like to, ask Dr. Anita Hawkins, Associate Dean for the School of Community Health and Policy, to speak about nursing.
Thank you for your question. There are resources and understanding how the nursing program operates. So students come in as freshmen into the nursing program, they're pre-nursing, but the nursing faculty are in the upper level courses. So often what happens, our nurses in their freshman and sophomore year don't engage with the faculty that are actually of the clinical nursing faculty, but there are staff who advise students and prepare them for applying into the upper class for nursing programs. So what I would like to hear a little bit more about, if it's issues with the faculty in your freshman and sophomore year, it's not a part of the faculty that are actually in the nursing program, because during that time you're completing most of your general education requirements. So that might be the feeling of disconnect, I think, with the faculty that you might feel. There are programs that are in place to help the nurses and the pre-nurses in the first 2 years to get them prepared so that they can be strong in order to pass into the upper. So I realized that that was the isolation you might feel is because it's a two-stage process. So that helps to answer your question.
Thank you. And so let me suggest that you come over and give Dr. Hawkins here your email address, and the two of you and the school can correspond and see if we can address your issue.
I have another question. Being a STEM major is very hard. If you're a STEM major, you would know. So for me personally, being a STEM major, it wasn't easy. However, I feel like as though there isn't a lot of African-American representation in STEM. I know right now as chemistry professors are leaving and there are only 2 sections available for higher level science courses with limited seats. Also, there's only 1 physics professor for students and they are forced to change their schedule or have to wait the full semester to take a whole nother course. So what is the solution for the low quality of STEM professors, especially in chemistry, physics, and computer science?
So I would not necessarily characterize the work of our professors here at Morgan respectfully in the way that you have. I respect your opinion on that, but we really have here at Morgan just an outstanding faculty, and the faculty will certainly have opportunities to do professional development in spaces to enable them to be even more innovative particularly in the STEM area. And so if you have particular concerns about that, I would advise Provost Yu that you bring those concerns initially to the dean, if you will, and that's Dean Hughes Darton, who's Dean of the School of Computer, Mathematical, and Natural Sciences, and then to sit down and talk with the provost about it. The second is that there is a huge problem in the United States, of which Morgan State University, especially with the initiation now of some additional doctoral programs in the STEM area, in producing Black scientists. That is a huge, huge problem. I looked at the data just about 3 or 4 months ago. There were, I believe, about 10 fields in the United States in the STEM areas where no Black received a PhD in the last 2 or 3 years. And so that's why it is so critical for places like Morgan to put in place some unique PhD programs in these areas so we can produce, if you will, a more diverse professoriate, and that's what we are doing. And so follow up on your question with the dean and also with the provost, if you will. All right.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Thank you.
day.
So, let's take one more question because of the technology. We'll take 2 more questions. So because of the technology challenges, we were a bit late getting started. We usually wanted to end this around 1 o'clock. I don't want to go too far beyond that, and really do appreciate all of you coming out. So let's make these 2 questions the last 2 questions in this format. And you can always email any of us. Copy me on all your emails, so I know that you have done that, and we will follow up and address whatever question you may have. So let's go to in the back first, and then you'll have the last question. And the standard for the last question is extraordinarily high.
I got you. Greetings, everybody. Greetings, President Wilson.
Greetings.
My name is Jawan Curry. I'm a junior psychology major. I'm also vice president of the Alpha chapter of Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated. I just wanted to speak on the email thing because it's more than the email thing. It's more of a missed opportunity type of situation. And I noticed that for fraternities and sororities and other organizations on campus, they introduced this website called the Bears Den. And that's how we get our events out. But the main method of still getting those events out is still Instagram. So I just wanted to caution against creating like an intranet, because the more things you add, the more opportunities we have to not use these things. It's really hard to get away from what's working. So something that I've noticed is working for psychology majors that none of my friends in almost any other major have, is that we have a canvas specifically designated for psychology majors. And in that canvas, they have career opportunities, they have community service, and it's very useful. It's helped me get my job. I do behavioral psychology full time now because of the canvas for psychology students. So I would, instead of creating an intranet or flooding our emails, I would urge that just as a psychology department has created a canvas, everybody uses Canvas. So maybe every other major should have a canvas specifically designated for their major and opportunities and things to grow, because you don't want to introduce things because that's just more opportunity for us to not use it. Let's just stick to what we use, which is Canvas.
Okay, very good,
Yeah.
very good. And so that's a very good point as well. Let me urge everyone to follow Morgan State University on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. I'm not sure, Mr. Jones, if we are on Snapchat or chat. Yeah, I'm slowly getting caught up here. And so certainly do that. And then all of the academic departments are also on social media. And so follow them as well. And I'm on social media, even though I had trouble pronouncing one of them. But you can follow me on Twitter at Morgan Prez, on Twitter. On Instagram, David WWI. because I do put a lot of information about things that are happening here at Morgan on social media as well. Okay, so last question.
So I'm an undergrad at Morgan. I'm in the School of Computer and Natural Sciences, right?
Right, speaking to the
Sorry,
microphone.
I'm in the School of
And,
Computer.
and your name is, sorry,
Follow-up.
Followaway?
No, Adore.
Adore.
My Morgan name is Adore.
Okay.
So you guys mentioned new buildings and renovations. What are you doing about the School of Computer and Natural Sciences? Because I noticed, like, I'm going there every day because I had to go in there for classes, and I noticed it needs a lot of repairs and stuff. So is that part of your next plan or next phase in the 2030 phase for renovating the School of Natural Sciences, Computer and Natural Sciences?
Yes, and so two things are happening here. So I spoke about the $240 million new science building. That's going to go right here where the Washington Service Center is. And that building is scheduled, Ms. McCallum, to be finished in what, 2026, 2027? So in about 4 to 5 years, we'll have a new science building that will house biology and chemistry. And then in the meantime, because we'll have to make sure that the appropriate learning environment is in place in the existing facility, we are going to make improvements to that facility, but not do a complete renovation of it because it is slated to undergo a complete renovation at some point. And we don't want to invest millions of dollars into a facility that we have plans to completely renovate. But in the immediacy, yes, we are planning to build a state-of-the-art, world-class new science building. Just back into the microphone.
And my other question was about Cold Spring. Like, Morgan is not exact, like you mentioned, the safety issue. So what are you exactly kind of doing about that? Because I would suggest like y'all put street lights on Cold Spring Lane for the students that had to leave, or like make bus routes to stop at actually the bus stop, like by Cold Spring Lane, so students can get home safely and stuff like that. Because for me personally, safety is like an issue. Like I always try to get off campus by 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. because it's not that safe. So can you talk more on that?
Yeah, and so first of all, in terms of lighting, we are working with the city of Baltimore to install street lights, both what we call vehicular street lights, which typically are those real high street lights, and pedestrian street lights that would be also lower, like the ones here, in order to illuminate those exterior areas around the campus much better than they are now. And we're working with the mayor's office to do that. And we hope to have all of that upgraded pretty quickly. In the meantime, Chief Hatcher, with regard to the additional staff and security officers, we also are redeploying those, particularly as we move to open up Northwood. And then we're going to have our entire police department in Northwood. They're not going to be sequestered over here in the Washington Service Center, but they're going to be right there, if you will, in a way that will control the external movement in a way that they have had, they've not necessarily been that visible before because of the location. And so that building is going to open in November of this year. And we hope that that also will it will elevate the security of the campus and then simultaneously send a message to the university community where they feel the safety of the campus as well, because you can do those things, but if you still don't feel it, then we got to get to that space where you feel comfortable. Okay, let me thank all of you. And this has been great to have all of you, all the seats filled here almost to come out. If you would like copies of these slides, just email any one of the individuals back here. All of our emails are public. So Robin Gray, ROBIN.Gray at Morgan.edu, Stacy Ben, STACEY.BENN at Morgan.edu. And of course, I get to all your emails anyway. And unlike you, I read all yours. And so I hope you know I had to end with that. Look, let's have a great rest of semester. Good luck to all of you. And let's go Morgan State University. Thank you. Thank you very much.